Hello and welcome to the Crimson Misery Podcast, episode 23. My name is Will Rainbolt. I hope you all are doing well. It is January 24th, 2025. If you all are listening on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, consider rating the show 5 stars. If you are listening on YouTube, then like, comment, subscribe down below. So, I want to start off this podcast a little bit differently. Um, because I feel like as a podcaster, you have to delve into more pop culture and more just timely news in general. And there are some things I definitely want to talk about. Obviously, I've talked about politics more on this show a little bit. And I also wanted to say some stuff about some celebrities that have passed away that I didn't mention in my previous episodes when I probably should have. But yeah, I wanted to start off with Bob Uecker, the famous broadcaster for the Milwaukee Brewers. He was also a player, also played for the Cardinals, my favorite baseball team for a while. Um, Most notably for his catchphrase, get up, get out of here and gone for Ryan Braun. I think I think that's pretty close. But um, yeah, he is a broadcasting titan. Obviously, the Milwaukee Brewers radio as well. Also, notably, was in the film series Major League with Charlie Sheen as Ricky Wild Thing Vaughn, and also uh, in that movie series, he was known for his infamous quote, "Just a bit outside." So yeah, rest in peace, Bob Uecker. Even though the Milwaukee Brewers are rivals, I've always respected Bob Uecker, and baseball is going to really miss him, and the world's going to miss him too, because he was genuinely funny, genuinely full of life. Even in the last couple of years, it's like he really uh did the thing he loved most until until he passed. So he's 90 years old, man. That is insane. Uh uh to really think about how long he was able to do the thing he loved the most. And yeah, 54 seasons for the Milwaukee Brewers radio. Um Play-by-play announcer. So, yeah, rest in peace Bob Uecker. And then on the same day, it was also announced that David Lynch, the infamous film director, somewhat of a provocateur, but also um, very, very cunning and very interesting in his Lynchian ways of going about filmmaking, passed away at the age of 78. He was obviously most known for the ABC series Twin Peaks that was later adapted into a film, Fire Walk with Me. He was also known for Eraserhead, Mulholland Drive, Blue Velvet, which I watched in college. It was re- just, and then also Dune as well, which was not very well received, but um, at the same time, most known for films like that. Also, Lost Highway. Can't forget about Lost Highway. Again, another absolutely surreal, amazing film. Um, and I also like he was also very online for an elderly, not elderly, but like also getting in advanced age. He was very online and very communicative with the newer generation of film buffs, and yeah, just was able to communicate with them, and in order for them to get into his films, in dissect these films in a very kind of like neo noir and very realistic settings with these very spiritual and very otherworldly feelings, especially with films like Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive. Um, Very, very um, just he was one of a kind, man. What else can you really say? And especially with Twin Peaks, I will not reveal who killed Laura Palmer, but yeah, David Lynch, genuinely one of a kind. Also known for his weather reports up until a couple of years ago when he stopped doing them, but the weather reports were always very interesting from David Lynch. So, um, yeah, this one definitely crushed me. So, David Lynch, God rest his soul, and I hope you're creating some movie magic up in heaven, dude. Um, Final person I wanted to say, just kind of a personal music hero and definitely someone who inspired me, and especially when it comes to guitar playing and soloing. Um, John Sykes, the former guitarist of Whitesnake, Tigers of Pantang, Thin Lizzy, and also Blue Murder. He was also a part of that group. Um, Passed away at the age of 65 from cancer. Um, I mean, I not as much to say, but also his soloing was absolutely phenomenal on songs such as "Still of the Night" by Whitesnake and "Thunder and Lightning" by Thin Lizzy is another one that he just really crafted his own sound and just took off with that. And what made him so successful was his speed and technique. And when you combine those two things, um, it really creates a sound that is really, really difficult to replicate, but it's also really good to listen to. So rest in peace, John Sykes. Um, hope you're shredding it up there, man. Hope you're shredding it up there. So if heaven does in fact exists, I don't know. I can't prove it. Anyway, so let's get on with the show. So I did want to mention that. Let's dive in, and I'm going to start off with some women's basketball results that I wanted to get into. As I said, USC was absolutely going to beat Purdue, but my God, this was crazy. A 31 to nothing run after Purdue was leading in the first quarter. A 31 to nothing run. And in the second quarter, USC um, defeats Purdue 79 to 37. Avery Howell had 18 points for USC. Juju didn't have a fantastic game, but at that point she really didn't need to, honestly. But only 16 points. But USC is just they're incredible. This is exactly why they were my pick to win it all. And I'm sticking by that. I'm sticking by that. You cannot change my mind until they end up losing somehow. But regardless, UConn, not much to say about them beating Villanova. They're probably going to run the table in the Big East yet again. Paige Beckers had 21 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, very close to a triple double. Um, and then, bit of a shocker, Oklahoma State defeats TCU 60 to 59, despite Sedona Prince having 22 points and 13 rebounds. Um, this was a game Oklahoma State um, really had to come back in because they were down. I believe they were down by like 15 at halftime, weren't they? Yeah. And yeah, TCU looked like they were in control, and then all of a sudden Oklahoma State just took over this game. And um, Staley Hurd had 17 points, and then Annegret Atzi had 10. Jaden Wooten had 14. But for Oklahoma State, they really it didn't really look like they were, going um to pull it off. But yeah, Wooten scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. And yeah, it's the first time Oklahoma State has defeated a top 10 team since 2017. So yeah, great win for Oklahoma State, who is still like in the talks for the NCAA tournament. They are 16-3 and 6-2 overall in the Big 12. So yeah, I mean, TCU, and especially for someone like Prince, um, kind of disappeared in the second half after she pretty much dominated the first half. Because it really looked like Oklahoma State didn't have much of an answer for her, but I mean, they did. They were able to come back, and that's really difficult to do, especially in women's college basketball, where a lot of the better teams are able to still keep that pressure on kind of I wouldn't want to say weaker competition, but like once you build so much of a lead, it's really difficult to come back in women's college basketball. But kudos to Oklahoma State for winning this one and coming back and upsetting TCU, who was on a winning streak, and um, they 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 end up falling. So, um, and then West Virginia defeated Arizona State 89-59. Not much of a surprise. Michigan State wins at home against Penn State 82-61. And then Silas Swords had 23 points, 7 rebounds, defeating Minnesota in a ranked matchup. Michigan 24th, Minnesota 23rd, and Michigan ends up winning 70-65. So, and she had some clutch 3-pointers in this one. So, good job on Michigan to win that one. And then on Thursday, yesterday, we had UCLA remaining unbeaten, winning against Rutgers 84-66. Lauren Betts had 25 points, 13 rebounds. Notre Dame defeated Boston College 89-63. Hannah Hidalgo had 23 points and 5 steals to go along with Olivia Miles' big game. Notre Dame's just really good, so not much of a surprise there. Really bouncing back after the losses to TCU and Utah, and then Texas wins at home against Tennessee in a ranked matchup. This was a close game. This was well fought by both teams. Um, but Texas just ended up making more plays. They made some really good defensive plays, especially with Madison Booker. Um, they were able to slow down what Tennessee was trying to do. And again, being at home, Texas definitely had the advantage there. So Texas defeats Tennessee 80-76. Ohio State bouncing back after their first loss of the year to Penn State. Defeats Maryland 74-66. Maryland, I believe, now has lost 2 in a row, losing to, I believe, who else did I know who they lost to. It was Texas. Yeah, it was Texas. They got destroyed by Texas, and they lose at Ohio State. So they've lost 2 in a row, and 3 out of 5 they have now lost after starting undefeated, starting 14-0. Yeah. Ohio State, bit of a surprising loss to Penn State. I wasn't quite expecting that, but good job bouncing back at home in a game they should definitely win. Again, Ohio State's very good, so don't let that loss to Penn State really fool you. Texas A&M upsets Kentucky, their first SEC loss under Kenny Brooks. Um, Not a ton to say there, but again, Kentucky looked like they were pulling away. They were leading in the fourth quarter, but then Texas A&M outscored them 19-9 in the fourth to win that one. Both North Carolina and Duke putting their respectively great defenses on display. North Carolina held Wake Forest to 51 points, and they're now 0-8 in the ACC. North Carolina is 6-2. Duke is 7-1. They held SMU to 46 points. Winning 81-46. Georgia Tech also wins 75-62. NC State wins 74-66. California beats rival Stanford 75-72. Once again, I mean, the ACC in the women's side is just so much better than the men's side. It's almost comical. Um, so I again, if you haven't seen North Carolina play defense, and I guess now, especially for Duke, um, both teams really clamped down defensively because they were, I mean, holding SMU to 4 points in the second quarter and 9 points in the third, and then North Carolina held Wake Forest to 6 points in the um, in the first quarter in their game. So even though Wake Forest definitely got it going in the second quarter, they North Carolina ended up slowing them down in the second half. So pretty easy win for both clubs. And I also have to say, we have the standalone game today, January 24th, LSU, South Carolina, Don Staley versus Kim Mulkey. Um, I'm fairly certain South Carolina will win, especially because it's at home. But also, LSU is unbeaten at 20-0, 5-0 in the SEC. South Carolina does have a loss, but it is to the current number one team in the country in UCLA, and that was on the road. So, yeah, I mean, that's going to be a fantastic matchup to uh to watch. So, again, keep your eye out for LSU South Carolina. Make sure you tune in because that's going to be a really good game to watch. So, on to the men's side. I've already talked about the early week slate last episode. Florida had to really claw back in the game against South Carolina. South Carolina now 0-6 in the SEC. Florida really again, they were down by, I think they were down by double digits in this game, and they ended up having to bounce back. Will Richard ended up having the game winning layup with, I think, like 5 seconds left, and then South Carolina's final shot was off the mark. So Florida ends up winning this one. You got to survive in the SEC because even a game like South Carolina, they are mediocre at like and they're the worst team in the SEC. South Carolina is, and they're not actually like a terribly bad basketball team. So because they give top teams the scare, this is a top five Florida team, and I know it's at South Carolina, but that's still really really tough to be able to win on the road in the SEC. So that was just two of Will Richards' 22 points for Florida. And then Houston, not much to say. They destroyed Utah at home 70-36. Houston, a team that is currently number one in defensive rating and defensive efficiency for Ken Palm. Yeah, I mean that's they're really good um defensively and also the 13th best offensive team for offensive efficiency. So, yeah, Houston continues to roll. Kelvin Sampson has that team always playing well, always playing hard. Um I mean, what else can you really say at this point? So, Kansas defeated TCU. TCU is just not really that good this year. They win 74-61. Texas A&M stunning Ole Miss on the road. This game was just insane because it looked like Ole Miss was really in control of this game, especially in the first half. Um, and then, yeah, Obaseki hit the game-winning three. Um, because this SEC is just so crazy, man. Um, and Ole Miss really could not. Um, yeah, they really. Um, I mean, Ole Miss collapsed in this one, and also Texas A&M just kept hitting shots that that just they really needed to have, especially I mean the game-winning shot that Jamin Brakefield ended up missing in this one. And yeah, Texas A&M with a great win on the road. This conference is so crazy. One moment you can be beating Alabama on the road, and then the next second you're losing to Mississippi State, and then losing to Texas A&M. Ole Miss is slipping a little bit, but that's gonna happen in this conference. So, um, yeah, I mean, the this what else can you really say? I think it was an 11-2 run that A&M had. It was either 11-2 or 12-2, I think. Um, but also rebounding wise, Texas A&M really dominated the glass in this one. So that really helped them out to try to come back in this one, and they ended up doing so. So that was that game, and then St. John's takes care of Xavier in overtime. St. John's moves to 17-3 and 8-1 in the Big East. This is one of their best starts in the last like 15 years, I think. So St. John's is having a really, really um, spectacular surge in the Big East. So good job on St. John's for winning that one. Um, even though, I mean, you're still competing with teams like UConn and Marquette. So the uh, the real tests will be coming pretty soon. So we'll see. And then Indiana losing at Northwestern. What a surprise. Ty Berry, who was struggling with his shot so much in during this season, had 23 points. I think he hit, was it 6 3-pointers that he hit? 7 3-pointers that he hit. Okay. Well, yeah, that was, I mean, yeah. What a surprise that a guy facing Indiana would start hitting his shots finally. Um, and then Brooks Barnheiser at 21, Nick Martinelli at 18. Um, I just have to also say, I mean, look, Mackenzie and Baco had a bit of a bounce back game, and Indiana was leading at halftime, but Northwestern just really settled in offensively and sunk Indiana once again. Um, and this is something I'll talk about, like actually with the Big Ten a bit more as an entire conference. I don't want to specifically just mention this game, even though the officiating was incredibly bad in this game. Both teams had some pretty terrible calls go against them. I mean, Luca had a ball bounce off his head, and then I believe it was Larry Scarrato who called it Indiana ball. Um, and then also there were some really bad um, just terrible and ones that were called in favor of Northwestern, and then when it was like barely any contact, that just, I mean, I'm kind of used to this as a Big Ten watcher, but once again, officiating just terrible overall. And I'll get to that in a bit. Um, not only with not only with the officiating, but just the play style of the Big Ten in general. I want to talk about that a bit more. So, a little bit of mid-major updates. Cleveland State is now 15-6 and 9-1 in the Horizon League after beating Detroit Mercy 65-50. I mean, that's they're really grasping. They're strengthening. They're tightening their grip on the Horizon League. Purdue Fort Wayne is behind them at 7-3. But then we gotta give some love to Doug Gottlieb, who is now 0-10 in the Horizon League, 2-19 after losing to IU Indy 86-77. And again, this terrible season, and perhaps the lone season of the Doug Gottlieb tenure, the Doug Gottlieb experiment at Green Bay. Um, my personal one-sided enemy in Doug Gottlieb. So yeah, this season cannot end soon enough for the Phoenix. So that's so funny, man. Um, Drake, keeping pace with Bradley in the Missouri Valley, beat Valpo 81-71. Not too much else to say there. Kind of expected this. Valparaiso is not that good this year. St. Louis defeats LaSalle 64-52, keeping pace in the Atlantic 10 with teams like George Mason and VCU and Dayton. Baylor defeated Kansas State after losing. I believe they lost to TCU. VJ Edgecombe at 30 points in this one, so he's really starting to come into his own, which is nice to see. Utah State defeated Nevada 90-69. Ian Martinez at 23 points to lead the way there. Utah State keeping pace with New Mexico at 7-1. Oh yeah, John Calipari got his first win in the SEC after defeating Georgia by 3 points at home. Arkansas is 1-5, Georgia is 2-4. So do with that information what you will. Um, I mean, it really, it was a good game. It was a pretty thrilling win for Arkansas, but it just like it, it's so weird right now, especially because I think Boogie Fland is now out for the year, if that's correct. I know he didn't start this game, so I think he is out for the year. Now I need to find out. Yeah, he is out for the year. So that's really gonna hit Arkansas pretty hard. Um, San Diego State won in overtime against Air Force 77-76. Stanford crushed Miami. What a surprise. Miami is now 4-15 overall, 0-8 in the ACC. This just like screams like 0-20 to me. Good Lord, man. All right. So, and then USC beats Nebraska. Nebraska is now 2-6 in the Big Ten. What is going on with this conference? Nebraska crushes Indiana, and then since then they have just played like ass, losing at home to Rutgers and USC. This is a Nebraska team I was very high on, and now they have fallen off a cliff. 2-6. Man, what happened? I just what is this conference? Um Juwan Gary had 27 points, but that wasn't enough. Their defense is just not very good. Um and I wonder, like, I mean, I know Indiana is bad, but are they really so bad that they're like losing um to teams that just aren't really that good? Nebraska, Northwestern. I'll get to Illinois in a second, but man, like what else do you even say? Um like their defense has been struggling. They were higher in Ken Palm defensive efficiency than they are now, and their offense has been taking some hits. I just don't understand like how a team can look so good and then play games in your home court that is one of the best home courts in the Big Ten, by the way, and just lose to teams like Rutgers and USC, teams that are not very good, teams that you probably should be beating if you're wanting an at-large bid for the NCAA tournament. Because I looked at Nebraska as if they were, yeah, this team's probably getting into the tournament, and now I'm like, and now that's definitely not the case. I don't think Indiana's a tournament team. Right now, USC's not a tournament team. Rutgers obviously not an NCAA tournament team. Um, Maryland, maybe. I mean, they're playing better, and I'll get to them in a second. Right now, I think they are, especially after they beat Illinois. But once again, I will get into that right now because again, I want to talk about the Big Ten more as a just a conference for the last 25 years. So Maryland moves to 15-5, 5-4 in the Big Ten. So yeah, I mean, I'd say they are like currently as of right now, they are a tournament team. Angel Reese's brother, Julian Reese, had 27 points and 17 rebounds. One of the best games I've seen Julian Reese play in his time at Maryland. Um, really great win for Maryland, who goes on the road and beats Illinois, a team that blew out Indiana by 25 points, loses at home to Maryland 91-70. And like again, what do we make of Illinois? They lost at home to USC. They lost at Michigan State. They lost by 2, and they were also getting some really bad calls in that game. But you can't lose by 21 points to Maryland. Derek Queen had 25 points. Derek Queen is someone I should really be talking about more. One of the best freshmen in the entire country currently. Maryland plays Indiana next, so I'm really dreading that game. That's going to be on Sunday at noon. I don't know if I want to watch that game, to be honest, because I think Maryland will just blow the door off Indiana. Um, the way it's going right now. I mean, if Maryland beats Illinois by 21 points and Illinois already beat Indiana by 25, I'm like the transitive property in this case is like Maryland wins by 50 something points because God, Illinois just looked really bad. Aside from, I mean, even when Yaku Chonas was scoring, it was really inefficient. He went 0 for 4 from 3, 5 of 14 overall. I mean, Kylan Boswell looked all right, but even then, he had 5 turnovers, and Yaku Chonas had 7 turnovers. I mean, this was a terrible game for Illinois. A team that is like looked at right now as one of the best teams in the conference. Like you can't even beat USC and Maryland at home. Like what is this conference? Um, And again, this is also like Indiana. Why can't you beat an Illinois team? Is it because you're also that bad? Maybe. Um this conference just overall is so bad. I mean, I get that they have some pretty good teams like Purdue and Michigan State and Michigan. But even then, Purdue lost at home to Ohio State. Michigan lost on the road to Minnesota. Um, and I'm not saying like every team should like by how good every other team is, or if you're automatically better, like that means you should beat every team. Like I'm not saying that, but when you're playing a team at home like Maryland and USC after winning on the road against a team like Indiana, who again is not a good team right now, and they're just Indiana, by the way, is Illinois' only win in the last 4 games. I want to just put that out there. Um, the man win some games if you're Illinois. If you want to stay atop the Big Ten, like I mean, you're just asking for trouble. You're asking for like getting away from that the bye, like the double bye, come Big Ten tournament time. Like I really don't know what I don't know what they're trying to do. And again, Maryland dominated the paint in this game. Illinois has always been a very like a suspect like interior defensive team to me. Like they're a really good perimeter defensive team, but they definitely have some problems at the rim. Um, but again, Illinois, like their metrics are pretty good overall, but I just not sure that's going to translate. Um, but even then, they have the talent to do so, especially with Yakuchonis. When he plays well, when Boswell plays well, when Gibbs Lawhorn plays well, um, if Trey White and Will Riley can go going, Will Riley again at 0 points, Ben Hummerkaus at 0 points. I just don't. This Illinois team is so weird. And then Maryland looked really good. So if Maryland can keep this up, say they beat Indiana, move to 6-4, like they have a lot of momentum on their side. I'm not sure if it will translate, but we shall see. And if Indiana somehow beats Maryland, then I will have absolutely no idea what to think. That this is why college basketball is such a weird sport, something that I will never be able to ascertain. Um, and then just as a whole, as the Big Ten Conference embarks on another season, I get that overall in the Big Ten, you have Michigan State at 7-0. You have Michigan and Purdue, and then you have teams like Oregon and Wisconsin uh, at 5-3. But I'm not I'm not really here to talk about the overall like standings, even though Michigan State does look pretty good right now. Anyway, Tom Izzo finally looks like he has a team that's worthy of being a top 4 seed come tournament time with the way they're playing, which is something I was not expecting, by the way. And I don't think a lot of people were expecting. But Izzo's back. He kind of has a bit of flair going for him. Um, and that's something that's very funny to me because speaking of the Spartans and speaking of Michigan State, they are if you are not aware, they are the last team from the Big Ten to win the NCAA tournament on the men's side in 2000. They won the NCAA tournament in 2000. That was, I think, year like 4 or 5 of Tom Izzo's tenure. And no Big Ten team has won the NCAA tournament since then. There are teams that have come close. There have been plenty of runner ups. I guess technically Maryland in 2002, but they were part of the ACC, so I don't think that should really count. Um, Personally, I don't think that should count anyway, um, because again, they weren't part of the Big Ten during that time. So um, again, Michigan State is technically, if we're going by teams that were in the Big Ten when they won the NCAA tournament, then it was Michigan State. But again, Illinois was runner up in 2005. Ohio State was runner up in 2007. I think that was with Greg Oden. Michigan State was runner up in '09 to North Carolina. Um, see here, like trying to go up based off memory. Michigan was runner up in 2013. They were also runner up in 2018. Even though technically in the 2013 year, the Louisville championship got vacated. So some Michigan fans may claim, "Oh, actually, give the title to us," and especially when Trey Burke cleanly blocked Peyton Siva, and it it was called a foul. So and then trying to think here, Wisconsin in 2015 lost to Duke, and then recently last season Purdue lost to UConn. That has been the Big Ten's magnum opus since Michigan State won in 2000. There are many reasons why I think the Big Ten just hasn't been successful in the tournament, especially when it comes to winning. I think a lot of that has to do with the style of play that Big Ten coaches have to play with. A lot of them, anyway. Um, and it's really strange because there are outliers to this sort of like, defense first, very physical play with teams like Michigan State and Wisconsin for a lot of the time under Bo Ryan was defense first, very sluggish, but has slowly kind of evolved into a bit of a more offensive approach, even though I'm not sure it's really as successful, especially with teams like Rutgers also kind of moving toward that. There are a lot of growing pains. But again, we shall see when it comes to that. Um, very physical again. Northwestern also embodies that very physical style, especially with Brooks Barnizer getting injured seemingly every other game by doing something really stupid or just being in the wrong place at the wrong time on the court. Um, the dude gets injured so often, but especially because it just seems to me, and I could just be like speculating. Obviously, the officiating definitely has some part to do with this, especially on the offensive end where guards are being called for so much. Whether it's ticky tack fouls or you can't really uh, or trying to defend a guy driving in on you. Not even like obviously drop coverage is a little different, but especially when it comes to like ISO ball and someone setting a pick and roll, a lot of moving screens are missed, but then they'll call some sort of like not hand checking, but just kind of like a weird reach in foul when he's seemingly in legal guarding position. I've seen this so many times in Big Ten games, more so than in like every other conference. And then inside, like in the paint where a lot of the bigs are playing, it just seems like they let so much shit go. More so than when a guard is driving and then they get called for an and one when someone is uh like harassing you, or not even harassing you, but just like uh seemingly in legal guarding position, playing like smothering defense but not really fouling. They'll still call it regardless. And then when it's like the bigs in the paint, they don't really seem to call very much. And that is like the opposite of the NCAA tournament. So it sort of comes as like a culture shock for many Big Ten teams that suddenly are used to playing this very, physical style, especially in the paint, and especially when a lot of forwards are dominating the Big Ten. It just seems like guards from other conferences are able to take advantage of this sort of, again, it's like a culture shock almost um, that these Big Ten guards aren't really used to all the time. And it's not always like a 100%, guarantee. Obviously, Big Ten teams who are really good are going to be really good overall. And when you have a guard like, say, I mean, Terrence Shannon, for Illinois, again, not obviously a fan of Terrence Shannon, but he was able to take some games over because he was a really good guard, and you need good guard play in the tournament, and just teams that are so reliant on your big men are exposed as especially by the time you get called for being physical, you get into foul trouble, especially defensively, and you're all of a sudden being forced to go up against someone that's like um a bit stronger than you offensively. You start to shrink a little bit, and it just always has spelled doom for a lot of Big Ten teams. Again, when you have a guy like Zach Edey, it helps a lot, who is 7'4", who made the helped Purdue reach the title game last year. There are always outliers to this, but something I have noticed, it's like teams with really good guards from the Big Ten are seemingly able to have an easier time making going far in the tournament. I mean, Trey Burke is a prime example of that for Michigan. Jordan Poole for Michigan again. I mean, Braden Smith still there at Purdue, but he's always been a catalyst for this Purdue team. Um, Obviously, it's a little different without Zach Edey now, but at the same time, he and Fletcher Lawyer are still really good, and they're going to keep Purdue near the top of the Big Ten standings, barring just like a really strange collapse, which I don't really see coming, but who knows? It is it is college basketball. Expect the unexpected. So yeah, just as a whole, the Big Ten has always succumbed to this weird uh dichotomy of play from conference play to by the time the tournament rolls around. It's like this always happens to them. So again, maybe it changes, maybe, but I don't see it coming because it's like officiating and just the conference in general, whether it's the coaches or um, the commissioners. It's like they just gives us so much bad basketball and so much unwatchable basketball. Um, because for every classic that you have in the Big Ten, seemingly for the past at least like 10 years or so, um, you'll get three or four just unwatchable uh, foul fests and um, just so much physical play that doesn't get called inside or guards that just get called for everything. It's really strange to me to see the differences between how everything's officiated. And again, I think the officiating crews are also to blame for this. I mean, obviously you have guys like Larry Scarato who are literally he's a fired police chief who is still officiating. And you obviously have another big example is Jeffrey Anderson, who again, high knees guy. It's always kind of funny to watch, but as a college basketball official, is very, very inconsistent and has had some really bad games as of late. So again, it's not just those guys, but I mean, those are guys that people, especially on Twitter, are talking about a lot. And as a whole, it's just like the Big Ten's product is just not good. And especially as Indiana continues to fall, for me, it's just not really as enjoyable to watch. But thankfully, there are other conferences that put on better performances. So anyway, that being said, I mean, the, any team can win on any day of any given night, I suppose. Even though I've talked about why I don't like that saying very much, but um, yeah, it's simply just like it's not 100% that like the Big Ten will suffer. And hey, maybe Michigan State makes a run to the title game. I doubt it, but we shall see. Um, I mean, I don't have much to say about Memphis beating Wichita State 61-53, bouncing back nicely after the Temple loss. Still ranked. PJ Haggerty at 22 points. to lead Memphis in this one, and a bit more uh, mid-major action that happened yesterday on Thursday. William and Mary now 6-1 in the Coastal Athletic Association. Uh, 94 to 83, they defeated Hampton. So William and Mary still looking for their first NCAA tournament bid. So we shall see how that goes. Maine is now 5-1 in the America East after defeating UMass Lowell 86 to 85. So again, the America East is looking pretty interesting right now. Dunk City, Florida Gulf Coast, is now 6-1 in the Atlantic Sun after defeating Bellarmine 77 to 61. Bryant is also 5-0 in the America East, 95 to 76. So they're technically ahead of Maine. They're also ahead of Vermont, who's 4-1 now, for defeating NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Um, yeah, UNC Wilmington also in the CAA at 5-2. Same with Charleston. UNC Wilmington defeated Charleston 85 to 83. Bo Montgomery at 18 points to lead UNC Wilmington. So that's a fun conference race to watch. Towson is also 6-1. So there's going to be a lot of teams from the CAA that are really fighting for that top spot. So we shall see how that ends up working out. Again, I'm not entirely sure, but I guess we'll see once February and March roll around, and teams start to separate themselves. So Middle Tennessee is now 5-1 in Conference USA after defeating Sam Houston 77 to 75. Yeah, 14-5, 5-1 in Conference USA. So I mean, Middle Tennessee, after that run that they had with Reggie Upshaw in 2016 and 2017, they're finally starting to bounce back. So we'll see if they end up in the tournament again in Conference USA. We shall see. We shall see. Um, Northern Colorado is now 6-1 in the Big Sky. After losing to Idaho for their first loss, Idaho Vandals are now 9-11. Unfortunate number. 4-3 in the Big Sky. So yeah, Northern Colorado finally suffers their first defeat in conference play, but they're still 14-6. Still probably the favorites in the Big Sky as of right now. Um, yeah, just not a ton else to say there. St. Mary's is now 7-0. They are having a grip on this on the West Coast Conference. They're finally uh ahead of Gonzaga for once. And again, Randy Bennett has always been one of the better coaches to me. And it's going to be very interesting to end up seeing where St. Mary's goes from here, especially now that they're like ahead of Gonzaga, who has always overshadowed them. So yeah, we shall see where that goes. Morehead State now 8-1 in the Ohio Valley Conference at 8-1, 13-7 overall after defeating Eastern Illinois 73 to 66 on the road. Oregon State now 5-3 in the WCC after defeating Pepperdine 83 to 63. UC San Diego bounces back. They beat UC Santa Barbara 77 to 63. UC Irvine loses to UC Riverside 84 to 80 in overtime on the road. They suffer their first conference defeat. Not really was expecting that, but UC Riverside now 5-3 in the Big West, so one of the better teams in the Big West. But UC Irvine falls. That opens the door for UC San Diego. So the Big West race is getting pretty interesting. Again, UC Irvine has already defeated UC San Diego at UC San Diego, I believe. Um, so again, that is a race that really should be looked at. And also UC Riverside has a win over UC San Diego. So UC Riverside really playing spoiler for both the UC teams that definitely plays a big role in how the Big West is going to be shaped up. So again,
UC San Diego has a little more work to do, but both of those teams were tripped up by a little school called UC Riverside. So anyway, Santa Clara still winning. They are now 6-2 in the West Coast Conference, 93-65 over Washington State. Washington State's 5-3 on the year in the West Coast Conference, 15-6 overall. And then in the WAC, Utah Valley is now 6-0 after defeating California Baptist 74-69. So that was a lot of Thursday slate. On Friday, today, we have Villanova Marquette at 7 o'clock. So after uh, the LSU South Carolina game, we also have uh, with this to watch Villanova Marquette at Marquette. Uh, Probably Marquette ends up winning this one, but who knows at this point in the Big East. A lot of A10 action as well. Dayton's in action at home against St. Joseph's. We'll see how that goes. Michigan Purdue on Fox. That's going to be a really big game in Mackey Arena. Uh, big game for both teams who are trying to still maintain pace with Michigan State. Both teams really, this is a must win for both of these teams, I think. We shall see how that goes. VCU at home against St. Bonaventure. That's going to be a pretty interesting one because I think both teams could be winning this one, but my money's on VCU, even though I'm not a betting man. Um, Penn State, Iowa State in the Who Cares Bowl. Um, I just don't like watching either of these teams. Um, UCLA on the road, excuse me, against Washington. UCLA really bounced back nicely after that really bad skid. They've beaten Iowa and Wisconsin, so if they were able to get a win at Washington, that would also be really big for them. Um, Yeah, and then on Saturday, also some pretty big action. I'll actually be out for a bit on Saturday with my uncle. We're gonna go see the Raptors and Hawks game in Atlanta, which will be nice. But we again a lot of action that I'm gonna have to watch a lot of highlights for. Really, definitely keep track of while I'm at the game because there's some big games happening. Houston at Kansas, Tennessee Auburn at 8:30 is going to be a gigantic game in the SEC. Um, Ole Miss Missouri is another big one. We'll see if Missouri can bounce back after losing to Texas. Georgia Florida, Texas A&M Texas, Kentucky Vanderbilt. A lot of SEC games. Michigan State Rutgers is on CBS. See if Michigan State can stay unbeaten, or will Rutgers finally uh, use the power of their freshmen to bounce back in this conference? And maybe they are not as, maybe they aren't as bad as we thought they were. They just needed time to start gelling. We shall see. I think I already have the answer, but I'm not going to say it until it has gone final. So, with that being said, Duke is also in action against Wake Forest. This game is very, very interesting to me because while I think Wake Forest does have a shot, especially after beating North Carolina, I've already talked about Hubert Davis in last episode's dissection of how bad the ACC is. But Wake Forest is a team that has beaten Duke before um, in previous seasons at home. Um, will they get the win here? I really want them to do well. I just want someone else to really um, to win a major conference like Wake Forest. If they were somehow to like just jump jumpstart themselves and beat Duke and it somehow like win the ACC. I know I'm fever dreaming here, but like that would be incredible. Um, I would love it if Wake Forest were to win. Um, do I think that will happen? I give it like a 50-50 shot because Duke while they are undefeated in the ACC and they are the best team according to KenPom currently, second in defensive efficiency, fourth in offensive efficiency, and the eye test also proves that they are really good. Um, Wake Forest is a bit of a step up in competition compared to a lot of the other teams in the ACC. So, oh man, it would be great if Wake Forest could beat Duke, but I'm just not sure that will happen. Um, yeah, ugh, man, you know what? Screw it. Wake Forest wins. I said their first loss. I said Duke's first loss would be at Clemson. I'm changing my mind. Their first loss is going to be tomorrow at 4:30. Probably not, but I'm like speaking it into existence. Yeah, and then like obviously now that I say that, like Duke will win by like 20, but I hope it's a good game at least. Competitive basketball is sometimes the best basketball, but that's not always true. But anyway, with that being said, I think I'm going to end that there. Appreciate all of you all for listening to my podcast. Oh, no, 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 no. Actually, I do have something else to talk about. Yeah, so the Sickos College Basketball Committee has something they call the Circle of Sicko. It's the and if you all are not familiar with what the Sickos Committee are, they're a started off as a college football fan, not like fan account, where they recap all the action from Division One, Division Two, Division Three in basketball, and then obviously FBS, FCS in college football and other divisions and leagues. They have fans from everywhere contributing to their website, and then the sicko the logo of the man with like a scraggly stubble and uh like laughing as if he's a maniac. That comes from a cartoon comic from The Onion, where the a man is looking through the window and he says, "Yes, ha 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 ha, yes." So that's where that's from. The college basketball version has the Circle of Sicko, where it's like the transitive property where a team can beat one team, but then that team beats another, that team beats another, that team beats another until it wraps right back around to a different team beating the team that had started the circle. So, I mean, the Ohio Valley was the first one to close the circle. That was back that was 9 days ago. Um, on January 15th is when it was posted. So, Southeast Missouri State, they defeated Southern Indiana. That team defeated Tennessee State. That team defeated Little Rock, and it goes all the way back around um, to Southeastern Missouri losing to, I believe it's what team is that? I can't recognize their logo, but um, yeah, the Patriot League, like Lehigh defeating Bucknell, Bucknell defeating Colgate, et cetera, et cetera. You get the point. So the Patriot League was the second one. The Big East has already closed the circle, so um, yeah, like it's funny for me to see like um, DePaul beating Georgetown, but then Seton Hall beating DePaul, who's also really bad. Butler defeated Seton Hall. It's just really funny, and then like every other team has beaten someone that the other team ended up beating. So or losing to. So it's just really funny to see. So the Big East did that. The Big South closed their circle. Um, every team has to be part of this. By the way, if a team is undefeated or if they are winless, then the circle does not. Uh, the property does not work. So all of these conferences need to have uh, each team uh, participate in this. So the Big Sky was the next team 2 hours ago. They posted that, and then Conference USA was also the most recent one to complete the Circle of Sicko. Um, New Mexico State, UTEP defeated UTEP. UTEP defeated Louisiana Tech, and then it comes right back around to Kennesaw State defeating New Mexico State. So that is how that works. And then as the season goes on, obviously the more action that happens, the more circles will be completed for each conference. So anyway, with that being said, it is now over an hour of recording. So I'm going to end the episode here. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you all enjoy your college basketball watching. Hope you get to watch the LSU South Carolina game tonight, followed by a lot of really good men's action. And then obviously, same thing with Saturday and Sunday, but then also for the NFL playoffs and the AFC NFC championship games. Yeah, with Kansas City Buffalo seemingly round 1,000. Um, I'm gonna go Buffalo. I'm gonna go Buffalo. I want Buffalo to win. I'll be rooting for them to finally dethrone the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not. I don't want to hate on greatness because look, Kansas City is a dynasty. Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest quarterbacks, definitely the greatest quarterback of this generation, but like of all time, also really building up his resume for that title. So I don't want to hate on that, but also like I hate and I don't hate Andy Reid at all, but I mean guys like Harrison Butker who are like bigoted, I will always have a contempt toward, and then their fan base can be very irritating to see. But yeah, I have uh, Buffalo winning on that side, and then as much as I want the Commanders to beat the Eagles, I just think the Eagles are going to win this one at home. It just makes more sense to me. So it'll be Buffalo and Philadelphia playing for the Super Bowl. That is my prediction. So because of that, it's actually going to be Kansas City, Washington, because I'm just going to get that wrong. So with that being said, again, I hope you all enjoy your sports watching this weekend or whatever you're doing. And I will see you all next time whenever I get around to doing this podcast again. So thanks again, everyone, for listening. I will see you all next time. Bye bye.